I never believed dreams could be real. Not until I met him. That's how it started. For me, at least. For others, he'd already been there for years, lurking in the corners of their subconscious, waiting to wake up. You see, this isn't just a story about nightmares or sleep paralysis. This is something else entirely. Something darker. Something that doesn't stay confined to your mind when you open your eyes. It began on a rainy Tuesday night. I was working late at my office, a small, dimly lit cubicle where the hum of fluorescent lights drowned out everything but the rhythm of my own breathing. I had stayed behind because deadlines don't care about thunderstorms or fatigue. But as midnight approached, I felt different. My thoughts weren't mine anymore. They were sharper, colder, like someone else was whispering them into my ear. And then I fell asleep. When I woke up, no, not woke up. When I realized I wasn't alone, I saw him. A man standing by the window, silhouetted against the storm. His face was blurred, like an old photograph left too long in the sun. He didn't move, didn't speak. He just stared at me with those hollow, unreadable eyes. And yet, somehow, I knew what he wanted. He wanted me to follow him. Now, here's the thing. I'm not the kind of person who believes in ghosts or astral projection or whatever you want to call it. So naturally, I chalked it up to stress and exhaustion. Except it kept happening. Every time I closed my eyes, no matter where I was, he was there. In my bedroom, on the subway. Once, even in a grocery store aisle while I was picking out cereal. But the worst part, it wasn't just me. The first clue came from Sarah, one of my coworkers. She pulled me aside during lunch a week later, her hands trembling as she held onto her coffee cup. "You're going to think I'm crazy," she said, glancing around to make sure no one else was listening. "But last night, I dreamed about this man. He was watching me, and when I turned around, he was gone." I froze. "What did he look like?" I asked, though deep down, I already knew the answer. Like smoke shaped into a person," she whispered. "But his eyes, they were so real." By now, you're probably wondering if I lost my grip on reality. Trust me, I questioned myself too. But then more people started coming forward. Strangers on forums, friends of friends, random coworkers, all describing the same figure appearing in their dreams. Some claimed he spoke to them, offering cryptic warnings about things they couldn't possibly know. Others said he simply watched, silent and unmoving, as if cataloging every detail of their lives. And then came the messages. One morning, I woke up to find a string of texts on my phone from unknown numbers. Each message contained only 2 words: "He knows." At first, I thought it was some kind of prank, but when I showed them to Sarah, her face went pale. "I got the same ones," she admitted. "Last week." That's when we decided to dig deeper. We scoured online forums, Reddit threads, anything we could find about recurring dream figures. Most of it was nonsense, people claiming aliens visited them, or that their subconscious was trying to tell them something profound. But one thread caught our attention. It was titled, "Has anyone else seen him?" The top comment sent chills down my spine. "He's not just in your dreams. He's waking up." At first, I dismissed it as hyperbole. How could a dream character wake up? Dreams are just electrical impulses firing in your brain, right? Except, what if they weren't? What if there was something else, something ancient and incomprehensible, living in the spaces between our waking moments? Then came the breakthrough. A user named Dreamwalker93 posted a series of journal entries detailing encounters with a man over several years. According to their account, he wasn't content staying in dreams anymore. He was crossing over, manifesting in the real world. And worse, he wasn't doing it alone. Sarah and I spent hours poring over the posts, piecing together fragments of information. There were mentions of symbols carved into walls, strange whispers echoing in empty rooms, and entire towns reporting sightings of shadowy figures walking through the streets at dawn. One entry stood out above the rest. "If you see spirals, run." There's calling cards. Spirals. That word stuck with me. Why spirals? What do they mean? I didn't have time to dwell on it though, because the next day, I found one. It was etched into the glass of my office window. Perfectly circular, impossibly precise. Raindrops clung to its edges, distorting the light as if the symbol itself was alive. I stared at it, heart pounding, unable to look away. And then I heard it. The faintest sound, like distant footsteps approaching from somewhere far beyond the storm. Do you feel it? A voice whispered behind me. I spun around, but the room was empty. Yet the footsteps grew louder, closer, until they seemed to echo inside my skull. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the noise stopped. All that remained was the spiral, and the sinking realization that I wasn't safe anymore. The spiral on my office window haunted me. It wasn't just a mark. It felt like a message, written in a language I couldn't understand but somehow knew. Every time I glanced at it, the air seemed heavier, as if the room itself was holding its breath. I tried to convince myself it was vandalism, some prankster with too much time and a glass etching tool. But deep down I knew better. That night, I didn't sleep. Not really. My dreams were fractured, disjointed flashes of places I'd never been and faces I didn't recognize. And through it all, he was there. The man from the window. The man who shouldn't exist outside of dreams. Only this time, he wasn't watching. He was moving closer. When I woke up, or rather, when I jolted awake, it wasn't to the sound of my alarm. It was to the feeling of someone standing over me. My heart hammered in my chest as I forced myself to open my eyes, expecting to see him looming above me. Instead, I found Sarah crouched by my bed, her face pale and drawn. "You need to come with me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Right now." I didn't ask questions. There was something in her tone, an urgency that bypassed logic and went straight for survival instinct. I threw on clothes, grabbed my phone, and followed her out into the cold pre-dawn darkness. The streets were eerily quiet, the kind of silence that feels deliberate, like the world is holding its breath along with you. "Where are we going?" I finally asked as we drove toward the outskirts of town. "To find answers," she said, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. "There's someone who knows more about him than anyone else. Someone who's been tracking him for years." Her words sent a shiver down my spine. Tracking him? Was that even possible? If what Dreamwalker 93 had written was true, if he was crossing over into reality, then whoever this person was, they weren't dealing with ordinary phenomena. They were dealing with something far older, far stranger. We arrived at an old farmhouse, surrounded by woods thick enough to swallow the sun. The building looked abandoned, its paint peeling and windows boarded up. But as we stepped inside, I realized appearances were deceiving. The interior was meticulously organized, maps pinned to walls, notebooks stacked neatly on shelves, and photographs covering every available surface. At the center of it all stood a man in his late 50s, his hair streaked with gray and his eyes sharp with intelligence. "You're late," he said without turning around. His voice was calm, measured, almost soothing, but there was an edge to it, like steel beneath velvet. "I've been waiting for you." "For us?" I asked, glancing at Sarah, who nodded slightly. "No," he replied, finally facing us. "For him." He gestured to one of the walls, where dozens of photos were arranged in a chaotic mosaic. Each image depicted different people, yet they all shared one common feature: the blurred figure of the man standing somewhere in the background. Some pictures showed him in crowds, others in empty fields or dark alleyways. But the most unsettling ones were those taken indoors, inside homes, bedrooms, even bathrooms. Always watching, always waiting. "This isn't just happening to you too," the man explained, pacing slowly as he spoke. "It's happening to thousands of people worldwide, maybe millions. We don't know how many because most of them don't survive long enough to talk about it." "Survive?" Sarah echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," he said grimly, "because once he wakes up fully, he doesn't stop at dreams. He invades your reality, your mind, until there's nothing left of you but echoes." I wanted to argue, to tell him he was insane, but the evidence was staring me in the face. Those spirals etched into glass, the whispers in empty rooms, the footsteps that followed me even when I was wide awake. They were proof enough. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't bound by the rules of our world. But why? I demanded, frustration boiling over. Why us? Why now? The man hesitated, as if weighing whether or not to answer. When he finally spoke, his words chilled me to the bone. "He's not doing this randomly," he said. "He's searching for something, or someone. And based on what I've seen," he paused, fixing me with a piercing gaze. "I think it might be you." My stomach dropped. "Me? That's impossible." I'm nobody, just some guy working a dead-end job. That's exactly why he chose you. The man interrupted. You're ordinary, invisible, easy to overlook, which makes you perfect bait. Before I could respond, the lights flickered, once, twice, then plunged us into darkness. A low hum filled the room, growing louder with each passing second. It wasn't coming from any machine or device. It was coming from everywhere, vibrating through the floorboards, the walls, the very air itself. And then I saw it, faint at first, then brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat against the far wall, a spiral, larger than before, glowing faintly in the gloom. Beside it stood the man, clearer now than ever. His features were still indistinct, but his presence was undeniable. He raised a hand, pointing directly at me. Run, the man beside me urged, grabbing my arm. Now, we bolted for the door, but the house seemed to shift around us, stretching and twisting like a funhouse mirror. Corridors doubled back on themselves. Doors led to nowhere. By the time we burst outside, gasping for breath, the horizon was painted with spirals, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, carved into trees, rocks, even the sky itself. What do we do? Sarah cried, clutching my sleeve. The man shook his head, his expression grim. There's only one way to stop him. You have to confront him, face to face. And then what? I shouted. Wake up, die. What happens after that? He didn't answer, because behind us, the man from the dreams stepped out of the shadows, fully formed, solid, real, and he smiled.